What's up, witches? I'm Allie, aka BronxWitch, and welcome back to my channel, where you are the magic, and where I talk about Wicca the religion, witchcraft the practice, and tarot. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and click the thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. In this video, I'm doing another flip through and review, this time of the new BOTANICA deck by freelance illustrator Kevin J. Stanton. I participated in the crowdfunding for this deck when it was going on last year, and this deck is made by Beehive Books, and I got to choose the edition that I wanted. There's 3 different editions: the Enchanter, the Dark Alchemist, and the Herbalist edition. I got the Herbalist edition, which comes with a booklet, a golden charm, embroidered patch, stickers, and postcards. So let's get right into it. I will tell you that I have opened this once already on live just to unbox it. So I have seen what's inside before. But I made sure not to play with it too much so that it was nice and fresh and brand new for this flip through. So let's see what's in the box. It starts off with this just sort of intro page where you can write your name and who the deck belongs to. It's a nice touch if you're giving this as a gift. Okay, let's see, bunch of stuff in here. So the first thing we have right on top are the postcards. Beautiful. And the postcards are super beautiful with a black matte background, which is exactly what the cards themselves look like. So these are really cute. I'll definitely share these with some friends. So next we have the guidebook. And it's a very short, simple guidebook with some recommended spreads and general information about the cards. This is a Rider-Waite Smith-based deck, so it does follow that breakdown of major arcana, minor arcana, etc. But then obviously in this book, it lets you know exactly what flower is featured on the card, which is super important. And then Kevin explains a little bit more about the meaning behind the card, and specifically, and probably most importantly, tells you why he chose, you know, that flower or that botanical for that particular card. So that is very useful information to have, as that's going to be important to the whole process of reading with them. Useful. Then we have the embroidered patch, and this has a beautiful symbol on it. I'm actually not sure what the symbol is. I have to look back in the description of what the patch is for. I think it may be just an emblem representing the deck itself. But very cool. This is now the second patch that I have gotten like in the last month. I'm not really a patch person, but I think I'm gonna have to start putting patches on things. Let's see. Next, we'll look at the stickers. And so these are 4 really cute stickers that show paintings by the author. He is a painter. And then next we have this beautiful golden necklace charm of the dandelion, which is the card, which is the flower that I believe is featured on the Fool card. Really pretty, really thin and light, very delicate, with a little hook right here for hanging from a necklace. Really pretty. Okay. Now let's take a look at these beautiful cards. And of course, because I know that my tarot snobs are really into this, I've got to show you the box first. So the box is definitely heavy duty and intended to be kept. I don't know if you can see in there, but it actually has the name BOTANICA, Kevin J. Stanton, Beehive Books, 2020 printed inside. So pretty fancy, definitely intended to be kept. Very heavy duty, so you can store your cards long term. And then it has this beautiful gold detailing on the inside, gold on the outside. So lovely box, definitely to be saved. It's another postcard. Okay, so let's take a look at the cards themselves. Ooh, sunlight. Hopefully this is making the gold really pop. So we've got the cards here. They are a beautiful, nice, heavy cardstock with a matte black background and gold gilding in the decor, in the design here, which I believe is supposed to be representative of the dandelion, which is like the featured card. It's the Fool card. And we have gold gilding around the edges as well. Okay, so let's flip them around and start looking at the individual cards. Starting off with the Fool card, we have the dandelion featured. And as I was looking at these cards, one of the things that I noticed, in addition to the absolutely beautiful design, was just how simple everything is. And at first I panicked because I was like, wait, how am I supposed to know which flower is what card? But Kevin thought of that, thankfully, and he has put a little symbol here to help you know what card this is. So that is a little symbol for the Fool. And I believe it's actually the little white flower that the Fool holds. So that is there to kind of remind you that this is the Fool card. So that's really helpful because, yeah, like I said, trying to remember which flower meant what card would be kind of difficult. So this is a little cheat for us, a reminder that this is the Fool card. And here we have the Magician, which is indicated with the little infinity symbol at the top. And according to the guidebook, this is mistletoe on oak. And as we know, the Magician relates to, personal power and your ability to create and manifest. And so it says in the guidebook that Kevin chose mistletoe on oak because mistletoe was sacred to the Druids. It represented magic, and it was a representation of masculine energy, especially when it was growing on oak. So all this information is in the guidebook. I would definitely say this is one of those decks where you're going to want to keep the book for future reference. Here we have the High Priestess, represented by Elderflower, and the Empress, represented by Magnolia. This is the Emperor, and he is represented by High John Conqueror. These are actually the Morning Glory flowers. High John Conqueror is the root that grows underneath the Morning Glory. So these are Morning Glory flowers. And then we have the Hierophant, who is represented by the Rose. This card is the Lovers, and these are two peonies. And this is the Chariot. The wings let us know this is the Chariot. And these are nasturtium flowers. The Strength card is represented by Ironwood. And the Hermit, all nice and snug, is represented by Winter Cherry. We have the Wheel of Fortune, which in this deck, the author actually decided to call it the Medicine Wheel, and it's represented by Star Anise. Anise? Do you guys say Anise or Anise? I say Anise. And the Justice card is represented by gladiolus flowers, which I've actually never heard of, but they look really pretty. The Hanged Man is represented by a narcissus flower. And the Death card is represented by something called the lodgepole pine. It's a type of pine. Temperance is represented by a water plant, the water iris. And the Devil is represented by deadly nightshade, of course, a poisonous plant. The Tower is wild apple, which I'm excited to see because there's actually some of that growing in my neighborhood. And the star card is Jasmine Flower. The moon is represented by a flower called Queen of the Night. And the sun, not surprisingly, as the sun brightens in my room here, is represented by the sunflower. And these cards, by the way, guys, are super, super beautiful. I feel like I don't really need to say that much because it's pretty obvious just from looking at them that they are just gorgeously done renderings of really beautiful paintings by the author, the illustrator. Judgment is the Easter lily, one of my favorite flowers. Love lilies. And the world is represented by the quince. Very cool plant to feature. It's very similar to a pear or an apple. It's the ancestor. It's the ancestor of both the pear and the apple. So a lot of cool symbolism there. So those are the major arcana cards and the flowers that they relate to. For the minor arcana, I'm not going to explain exactly what flower is in each one. I'll leave that to each of you who decides to get this deck, so there'll be something left to enjoy. But I am going to flip through the whole deck so that you can see what it looks like, so you can get a feel for it and decide, you know, if this deck is right for you. So we're starting off with the Ace of Cups. They are so beautiful. The black background, I think, is a great idea. I also think going with no border and no words is a great idea. This is definitely a deck for someone who appreciates, you know, painting, and a deck that's very artistic in nature. So pretty. You are probably going to have to rely on the guidebook, at least at first, as you get more familiar with the botanicals that are featured on each card. It is, you know, not like the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith imagery where what is happening in the card is going to help inform you about the energy around its message. Here, you're definitely going to need to look up what botanical is represented in order to understand why that imagery has been chosen for that particular card. But if you are someone who doesn't mind doing that in the beginning and really wants to work with a deck that's just visually beautiful, then this deck is right up your alley. You may have already noticed, but we're going through the swords now, and this is the Ace of Swords. Ooh, look at the Three of Swords. I really love this. And see, this kind of helps to illustrate that point that the guidebook is going to help you to understand why these flowers were chosen for the Three of Swords, because just looking at the image doesn't necessarily inform you of the message of sadness or loss or heartbreak, which are the messages that are typically associated with the Three of Swords. So you would definitely want to look in the guidebook to find out what flowers these are and why, you know, they represent those themes of sadness, loss, etc. And then that will help make the card make sense from a divinatory standpoint. But in terms of just a piece of art, it is beautiful even without knowing what flower is on the card. And if you tune in frequently to my lives, my live weekly readings, and you know that we sometimes pull a card from a deck called the Herb Crafters Tarot, made by Letitia Guthrie and Joanna Powell Colbert, I believe. And we really like working with that deck because similar to this deck, the authors and illustrators chose flowers, botanicals, plants, and herbs that relate to the messages of the traditional tarot messages. But that deck is more written from the perspective of crafting with herbs, making medicine with herbs, working with herbs in a ritualistic fashion, etc. This is very different. If you're looking to craft with herbs or make medicines, teas, etc., and connect with herbs and plants on that level, then this deck might not work well for that. But in terms of working with flowers and getting a better understanding of the folklore, the mythology, and the energy around specific flowers, I think this deck is going to be perfect for that. So I am looking forward to maybe pulling a card every time I go out on one of my little nature walks, one of my little neighborhood walks. Because every time I go out for a neighborhood walk, I seem to find more flowers and plants in the neighborhood that I didn't know were there. For example, just today, I saw a couple patches of violets, and I also found what is called a princess tree. It's a tree that's native to Asia, and it gets its name because I guess back in the day, a girl child, when she was born, would have a princess tree planted, and then that tree would go with her when she was married off. And so, you know, the tree followed the princess, so it was called the princess tree. But it has these really beautiful purple flowers on it that I'd never noticed before. So I feel like this deck is the kind of deck where I can pull a card right before I go outside to see what types of flowers I want to look for or try to connect with. And I think this will be a really cool way to get to know the flowers in my neighborhood. I might even like photocopy some of these cards right into my herb book, because trust, these paintings are a lot nicer than the sketches I be doing. So beautiful. And I believe we are in the suit of wands now. So I got this deck as a part of a crowdsourcing, and I'm really happy that I was able to support an artist creating their vision. Apparently this was like one of the most successfully crowdsourced tarot projects. So I'm really proud of the illustrator Kevin J. Stanton for getting so many people on board. It was hard not to resist. This, like I said, is the Herbalist edition. There's also a Dark Alchemist and an Enchanter edition, and I believe the Enchanter is the top tier edition, and it comes in like a beautiful glass and gold terranium. All of the freebie gifts and stuff that come with the other editions are amazing. So I can totally see why people were really excited about the whole project. Really, really beautifully done. And here we are in the Pentacles Suit, I believe. Okay, so now is the moment that we have all been waiting for. You know, at the end of my flip through and reviews, I always like to shuffle the deck and show you guys how it shuffles. Before I do that though, I am going to point out that this deck, the makers of it, Beehive Books, they do have a video about how they recommend you shuffle this deck. Because it is made from this nice heavy paper and it's got the gold edges that you don't want to scuff up and scrape, they do have an instructional video for how they recommend you shuffle this deck. So I'm about to shuffle this deck not the way they recommend. I'm going to shuffle this deck the way that I shuffle decks because I just want to see how it shuffles. I have to do it. But I'm not necessarily recommending that you shuffle it this way, okay? Follow the instructions from the maker and their recommendation, and check out the video that I've linked in my description box on how to properly shuffle the BOTANICA deck from Kevin J. Stanton. But here we go. First, I'm going to shuffle this way. Okay. Not very soft, which is to be expected from a brand new deck, but definitely not the worst ever, not super, super stiff. I can definitely see these softening up a little bit over time and being a little bit easier to shuffle that way. I'm going to do it that way one more time. Okay, and a little easier that time, so not bad. Nice. And they shuffle pretty smoothly this way as well. One thing that I've noticed about new decks sometimes is they're so slippery you can barely hold them. And this deck, because of the fact that it's matte and it's got this, like, I don't know what you would call this, embossed, like it's kind of 3D a little bit, so you can feel the ridges. So those ridges and the matteness helps the cards not to be too slippery, so they're not flying out of your hands everywhere. So I would definitely say I enjoy holding these. They're not too thick. The deck's not too large. You guys know I like smaller decks. Yeah, beautiful shuffle and a really beautiful deck. So witches, this deck, as well as the Dark Alchemist and Enchanter versions of this deck, are available now from Beehive Books. I've included info in the description, along with info about the artist, Kevin J. Stanton. Let me know what you think about this deck. Do you like it? Are you planning on getting it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you found this video helpful, or you just liked it, please make sure to click the thumbs up. You can leave any comments and questions down below. And of course, subscribe. Click on the bell button so you know when the next video comes out. You can follow me on Instagram at BronxWitch, and I will see you in the next video. Blessed be.